Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is yet another album review, and the album that I'm going to be discussing today is Backstreets of Tokyo by Off Course. Now, this is a band that, at least in America, is pretty obscure. They never really wound up having that much success here in the United States, but they were a very successful band in Japan. They started out in the late 60s, and they were actually touring and doing albums all the way until the tail end of the 1980s. Now, before I get around to sharing some thoughts on this album, I want to give a special shout out to Ryan for requesting this video. And if there's another album review, film review, TV show review, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, the band Off Course, it features a handful of members. So you have Kazumasa Oda, who did vocals and keyboards. You got Yashiro Suzuki, who did vocals and guitars. You have Hitoshi Shimizu, who did vocals and bass. You got Kazuhuko Matsuo, who did vocals, guitar, and harmonica. And you have Hitoshi Hiro Oma, who did drums and percussion. Now, this album is only comprised out of 8 tracks, and this was their attempt to try to break through in the United States because this is an all English album. Prior to this album, they sang their songs in Japanese. In fact, some of the songs that are on this album in English uh, were sung in Japanese. So, what we have here is an album that is definitely an acquired taste. If you like pop rock, if you like synth pop, if you're into AOR music, I think there's definitely a lot to like here. But I think some people might find it to be kind of generic and kind of bland and kind of forgettable. But I think for the kind of music that they were trying to do, it's high grade enough overall that I feel that they should have gotten a little bit more success in the United States, especially around this time in the mid 80s. So the first track is called Fool, What Does a Fool Do Now? I really like this track. I think it's got a good hook to it. The synths are really well utilized throughout it. I think the vocals are, for the most part, pretty good. For the kind of song that it is, it's definitely a nice synth pop type of composition. It's not what I would say like one of my favorite songs, but it's definitely the kind of music that I like to listen to. So yeah, I thought that was definitely one of the better tracks on this album, Fool, What Does a Fool Do Now? My favorite track, though, is track 2, Second Chance. I really like this track. Fool, What Does a Fool Do Now? It was a fun listen, but Second Chance I really liked. It's not only a track that has another really catchy, good hook, but I like the lyrics. I like the vocals. I really love the synths in this and the overall instrumentation of it. And it's arguably the catchiest of all the tracks on the album, and definitely the one that really has the most replay value, other than "Endless Nights," which is the song that concludes the album. Track 3 is called Love's Determination, and it's another one that I liked, even though it's a bit long. It's like 5 minutes. for the kind of music that this is and the kind of song that Love's Determination is, I don't really feel it needed to be that long, but I still didn't mind it. Had some good riffs, some good rhythm to it. Once again, I felt that it had some solid vocals. Uh, and the lyrics were okay, although they were a bit repetitive. But I didn't mind that track, so I would say the first three tracks are pretty good. Then you get track four, which is called "Her Pretender." That and Melody are probably my least favorite tracks on this album. Her Pretender is more of a slow song, almost a ballad, and it's got some good vocals in it, but I don't really care for the song that much. That is a song that sounds really generic and dated for me. I know some people probably say the entire album sounds that way, but there are some songs early on in this album that to me have a bit of like new retro wave kind of vibe and feel to them. So that's something that I don't feel has completely aged that poorly. But something like Her Pretender, yeah, that is definitely something that's kind of aged like milk. Um, Eyes in the Back of My Heart is track five, and that's another one I didn't mind. I feel that's more of a return to form for this album. Still got the same nice synth riffs and some good percussion. The vocals are still, for the most part, a strength of the album here. And this track is no exception. Um, Honestly, a lot of the vocals in this album remind me of the kind of vocals you would hear from bands like Asia, which I love. I love Asia. Asia is a band that I really like. So having a vocalist, especially a Japanese vocalist who's speaking in English and having their voice remind you of Asia and the lead singer of that band, that's a significant positive, if you ask me. So, yeah, I like Eyes in the Back of My Heart. It's another one that has a pretty catchy hook to it. Track six, though, Melody, another track that just goes on for a little bit too long, even though it's like 4 minutes, but it just feels like it's longer than that. The vocals are not too bad, but it's definitely a slower song, more of like a ballad, and I'm not really big on those. So Eh, not really a super big fan of that track. Definitely one of my least favorites of the album. Track 7 is called Love's on Fire. Another one that's a little too long. It's like over 5 minutes, but it's still got some good synth riffs, especially in the opening. Like I think it has some really nice synth work in the opening of the track. The vocals are, for the most part, consistently good in comparison to the rest of the tracks on the album. The lyrics are fine; they're suitable enough for the kind of song that it's trying to be. Um, but yeah, it's a bit long in the tooth. And track eight, the final track is "Endless Nights." And this is a very much a city pop kind of song, and I really liked this one. It has a certain vibe to it which I feel is very chill and relaxing, and it's got its own strengths other than just its vibe though. I think it's a really well structured, well put together song for what it is. It's got some really strong vocals, some good percussions at points, some really good synth work. Overall, I think it's a well composed and a well drawn out and stitched together song. I think it's definitely one of the standout tracks on the album for sure. If this song had a little bit more play in something that was a little more popular in the US, then I could see this or something like Second Chance or becoming a little bit more popular. I think all this band needed was one of their songs or two of their songs having heavy airplay on like MTV or on the radio, or honestly, I think a good way for this band to have really uh, um, left their mark or uh, caught the attention of American music fans is by having some of these songs featured in like a soundtrack, whether it's for a movie or a TV show, just something to give this band and their work a little bit more exposure. But that never really happened. This album came out in 1985. It didn't really sell that many copies. It didn't do that well. It flew completely under the radar, and that's really what the album has honestly been after all this time. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the album. There were a couple tracks that I could, take or leave, but for the most part, there were more tracks that I liked and then tracks that I didn't. So if you're a fan of synth pop or city pop or AOR music and you like 80s songs, you want to do something a little bit different with your playlist, put something a little bit more unique or something with a little bit different of a flavor in there. I think, this album is definitely something that's worth listening to. It's not on Spotify though, for some reason. I think you can find some of their songs on Spotify. I know that their biggest songs were songs in Japanese, like Yes, Yes, Yes and Sayonara. I actually listened to Yes, 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 and I could see why that was a hit in Japan. That's a pretty good song. I don't understand most of the lyrics because I can't speak Japanese, but I could see why that was a song that definitely got some airplay, or got some recognition, so to speak, from a lot of Japanese audiences at the time. But yeah, if it's something that sounds like it's right up your alley, give it a listen. I'll put a link in the video description down below for the album so you can listen to it if that's something that you're curious about doing in the future. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Off Course's album Backstreets of Tokyo. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.